Welcome, everyone, to Hands on Politics, where a couple of brothers from the Bronx get together on a weekly basis and we talk about the issues of the day. And we hope to make politics understandable for those who want to understand politics. We created Dub Bronx Institute for all of you folks that love politics. And we appreciate you joining us today on episode number 94 of Hands-On Politics. We're getting up there, Ken, and I'd love to start out. We had an unfortunate death in the family, so we saw each other over the weekend at a wake and funeral, and the kind of the ebb and the flow of when someone dies.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad that the person dies and we lose them,
Yes.
but it's so nice to see family, and it's such a shame that that's the time we mostly see our families. And but it was a beautiful time. Auntie
Mm-hmm.
Lane was a beautiful soul, and it was a celebration of her life, and it was good to see everybody. It was good to see you. It was good to see all our brothers and sisters. It was good to see cousins and uncles and aunts and friends. It was just it was a wonderful event, and sometimes you wonder if that's in God's plan is to get people back together and to make sure that they make those connections again. And it was so good to see you and the family over the weekend.
It's very sad that Anna Lane isn't with us, no doubt about that. But one thing that I learned this back when Grandma Doyle passed away. I think that was the first time I had ever been to a wake, ever been to a funeral. But Irish wakes or Irish funerals are really celebrations. They really are life celebrations. And that's how this was. You're there and you're celebrating Anna Lane's life with her husband, Uncle Kenny, and their kids. And so it was good to celebrate that. But yeah, you get together. There's a lot of laughing. There's telling old stories. And it's just great to get together again. And so, yeah, when I was young and I saw the laughing going on, I'm like, wait a second, this is a wake. We're not supposed to do this. But I've learned over the years, and I appreciate it. I really do like the fact that people are happy and celebrating the life and celebrating seeing family again. I said to Sherry, I said, it was a wake, but I really had a good time seeing everybody.
Yeah.
You know what
It's
I
a
mean?
weird thing to say that. Yeah, it really was a great time. And Uncle Kenny honored me with being a pallbearer, and that was a special opportunity for me because I was, sharing with some of our cousins that sometimes I feel closer to our uncles and aunts because of my age. I'm the oldest of the 22
Mhm.
grandchildren. And here's the difference. When Aunt Elaine had her first, Karen, it was 1976. I was in high school, and the girl that I was dating, Karen Malloy, um, we went out to see Aunt Elaine and Uncle Kenny when they had Karen. And then they had Kenny, and then they had Kathleen. Now, Kathleen is the youngest of the 22 cousins, and I'm the oldest. And
Uh,
the age difference is massive. So it's like I feel sometimes with the younger cousins that like I'm the old man in the crew, and sometimes I feel, like I said, I feel closer to Uncle Kenny.
yeah.
And Uncle Richie was only 10 years older than me, and Kathleen is 20 years younger than me. It's like that's a ballpark figure, but it's a big difference. So,
Yeah.
but it's so good to connect and see people and telling stories. I really appreciated when we were telling stories to Brian about when we lived at Uncle Richie's house. And I think it was better because at Uncle Richie's wake, it was too raw. Rightfully so. Brian was really, really mourning there. And at Anna Lane's, there was enough time that went by that he could appreciate some of the stories, I think, about
Yeah.
his dad. And it was easier to tell him, not so much him, it was more for us that it was easier for us to tell him because it wasn't right there raw and like, his dad had just died, and Uncle Richie was unexpected. So that was
Yeah.
more difficult. Where Anne Elaine, there was a lot of preparation because she had struggled with brain cancer. So people had the chance to say goodbye to Anne Elaine and to kind of resolve things. So, but
Yeah.
you have some pictures up there. We got the opportunity to get together for a few meals. We went with our sister Gina to one of her radiation treatments, and Denise had given her a stuffed animal that she called Duncan, very appropriately.
Doug. Yeah.
You got to give it to her, so you got all the credit.
I
But
don't
it
know.
was wonderful seeing her and the staff that at the home where Gina lives. So it was
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, you can't say enough about April and Sharon. They are just so, so good with Gina. So she's a real trooper. She's doing real well. Apparently early on, it's a little bit easier, but as the
Yeah.
weeks go on, because she'll be doing this for some, 6, 7 weeks or so. So we're really just praying for Gina that she'll handle this well. But it's a lot of fun to see her, and
Oh yeah. She's a character.
she's a character. And we have the picture of Philip down there. You had a
Yep. Another
chance to spend a little
character.
time with him. Yeah. Gosh, yeah,
uh,
Philip. Every family should have a Philip, a brother Philip, because
Absolutely.
he is just so much fun to be around. He'll laugh at all your bad jokes, and he'll tell you how nice you look, and
Oh yeah.
he's just a good guy. And all he
He's a
asks
kind
in return is maybe a bag of M&Ms,
yeah.
or or
Diet
an iced
Coke or
coffee.
a Dunkin' Donuts,
That's
something
right.
simple.
Yeah.
That's for sure. All right, Ken,
So
where do you want to begin? There's a lot going on. We might as well start at the White House Correspondents' dinner assassination attempt. Ken, I was we came in from being out at dinner or something, and just turned on the TV, and she was like, "Hey, check out, turn on the TV down here. There was an assassination attempt on Trump." And you know what? It didn't surprise me in the bit. It was almost like, oh, geez, here we go again. It it wasn't surprising. It's disturbing, but it wasn't surprising. One of the things I want to talk about, Ken, which I find very disturbing because there will be more attempts on the president by these crazy people who have been brainwashed. We need to talk about, after you kind of give your overview, we need to talk about the Secret Service and
yeah.
uh, their actions and what we saw on the video and who we're hiring, and is the president vulnerable here with the people he has around him. So I'll hand it over to you, Ken. What were your thoughts about the assassination attempt?
Yeah, just like you, when Sherry told me about it, I wasn't shocked at all. Um, I just think that when politicians just continually speak about Donald Trump as being a Nazi, Hitler, a fascist, an existential threat to democracy, what else do you expect? There are a lot of people in in the Democratic Party who have mental issues, and I just think it's totally irresponsible of Democrats to speak the way that they do about Donald Trump. On our Facebook website or our Facebook page, Hands on Politics, we get feeds. And I see on a daily basis people talking about, oh, I woke up again and he's still alive, and things like that. And there are many people who are just want to see him die. And I read the what do you call the manifesto by
Manifesto.
Cole, yeah, Cole Allen. And I was expecting some like a psychopath, a psychotic, a guy who's just talking totally crazy, but he literally sounds like a person who's just regurgitating Democratic talking points about Donald Trump. He
He
talked
could be
about
on a
Trump.
CNN panel.
That is absolutely true. He didn't say Trump, but he's talked about pedophiles, rapists, traitors. children being starved, teenage girls being abused, the fishermen being murdered, and the courts and the government being lawless. So these are Democratic talking points that you hear on a daily basis, and responsible politicians know what this is doing to their fringe base, and they don't care. I'm sorry. They should know better. They should not be talking like this. It is a dog whistle to a lot of their extremist followers. So, like you said, I expect this to continue because
Yeah.
this person, kind of like an Islamist who is a suicide bomber, they think they're going to X amount of virgins in heaven. These people think they're going to be heroes on earth for
Absolutely.
killing Donald Trump, and
Yep.
it's really awful, and it needs to stop.
It's absolutely disturbing. And one of the things is we have those extremists as representatives in the Congress. We have, the squad. They're all extremists. We have is it Walsh from Connecticut? There's so
Murphy, yeah,
Murphy, another an Irishman.
yeah.
Yeah, Murphy is nuts. Even uh, uh, Kareem Abdul, Jabbar there, the head of the House. They're extreme. The people that are in Congress are extreme, and it's not just the loony left. It's they are kowtowing to them, and it really is dangerous. And they spread these lies. That they take pictures from when Donald Trump used to host the beauty pageant, Miss
Yep.
America,
Mhm.
and he'll be in a picture with young contestants. They're all of age, young contestants, and then they blur out the faces, and then they say something about the Epstein files without addressing where that picture was taken, with the assumption that
Yeah.
these are people that he was with Epstein with. And it's so deceiving. And people hate Trump so much that they're so willing to believe. And, the whole rapist thing is just BS with E. Jean Carroll. We've talked about this many times. She's a liar. She did it for the money. There are documents that show she was lying, and it was so bad. They won a civil suit because you can do anything in New York to Donald Trump, and you will never get a jury that will give him a fair shot at clearing his name, because they hate him so much. The city is full of E.G. Carrolls, or whatever her name is, and she couldn't even tell you when it happened.
That's right.
She had no details of it. And anybody that knows Donald Trump, she said it happened in like a department store,
Yeah.
dressing room. Can you ever picture Donald Trump in a department store? That just doesn't pass
Yeah.
the
By
laugh
himself.
test.
By himself. Donald Trump goes shopping
Yeah.
by himself.
It's so pathetic. But these people, they want to so believe that he's a bad guy. And, was he crass like ever? If you went into the locker room in the 1970s, any locker room that I've been in, and you
Yep.
listen to a bunch of guys talk about women, and then go 40 years forward and hold them accountable to their 17-year-old, 20-year-old, 23-year-old discussions about women, and you're going to hold them and think that that's who they are. That kind of analysis is just so beyond. It's despicable, because boys are boys, men are men when it comes to talking about women. It's just it's the human nature of the game. As they grow up, they mature, and that's what it's just the way of the world. And
Yep.
these people want to hold human behavior against people when they did things at such young age, just saying things. It's not even you make a joke, you can't even make a
Yep.
joke anymore, and it's sad stuff. But Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
he's a
let me also
target.
point.
So
Yeah, let me point out. What do you think about all these extremists? And you're talking about the squad. Uh, oh gosh, what's her name down in Texas? The one with the huge eyelashes and
Jasmine Crockett or something.
Jasmine Crockett. She posted something on social media where she's claiming that this assassination attempt was made up. And there's a lot of people, a lot of Democrats who claim that this was made up. And I just find it, and it's not funny, but on the one hand, they're out there encouraging people to assassinate Donald Trump. But yet, when somebody goes and tries to assassinate him, they're like, oh no, Trump is making this up.
Yeah, to get the
What is it?
ballroom built.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something quick about that. I substitute taught yesterday. One of the questions, one of the things that I had to bring up in a forensic class was we talked about this whole situation and then what could be done to keep this from happening again. And so when I was talking to them, I said, keep in mind, we live in the United States. We have civil liberties, and we have privacy rights. And so the students came up with quite a few ideas on what could have been done. But one of the ideas, and I can tell you that these kids, they're not political. They don't know that
Yeah.
what they're suggesting, Democrats are already criticizing Trump about, but they're like, they should build a place where they can have events like this. And I'm like, that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. He's building a ballroom right connected to the White House, but he is being criticized for this by the Democratic Party. So I thought that was kind of interesting because it is a kind of a common sense thing to
Yeah,
come up with to keep the president safe.
absolutely. Can the Hilton where this happened, it's really not a secure facility. The fact that this teacher could come across the country with weapons and then check in the day before or whatever, and he has a manifesto, he has pictures on the internet about whatever, um, and being in that building, God forbid he had like explosives,
Yeah.
and just blew up the building above or next to or whatever, the conference center, that could have been absolutely devastating. There's a lot of talk about the Secret Service, and I think the Secret Service has benefited from the fact that it's been secret and people make assumptions that they really know what they're doing. And when we watch there's a video out there, Ken, and I'm sure you saw it, of the guy rushing one of the checkpoints, like just ran by with his weapon. And the guy and the Secret Service that was standing there they they were surprised by that. And I've heard analysis from former police officers, former Secret Service, former CIA, the whole gamut saying you have those guys' one job is to
Hmm.
be alert to everything going on. So, how does that assassin run from 30 feet away and get by? And the guy jumps out of the way instead of jumping into him. Like, why not a good, cross body block tackle? Instead, they pull away and draw their weapon. And it's like, why wouldn't have I just don't get why he wouldn't have tackled him. And I heard a Marine on a TV radio show say, my dad would have been so embarrassed. My dad was law enforcement. He was an ex-Marine. And he said that we're hiring the wrong people when we're hiring them for these kinds of things. The first thing he should have thought of was if he couldn't get his gun out, he was going to take him down. And so we can talk about DEI hiring and the fact that there's a place for females in analytics and all that. But when you're talking about a president that's 6'4",
Yeah.
and if we had trained assassins, they could have come in shooting their machine guns and they would have got in. They would have got
Hmm.
in. I don't think the Secret Service, I think he needs special forces around him the way things are going, because he needs big, burly Marine special forces who actually, that's what they do. They're the people who get it done. These Secret Service, I'm really concerned about them, Ken.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that. It's like there's been so many attempts on his life. They got to step up their game. But I don't know who's in. One of the things with so many years of Obama, and then you did have Trump for a little bit, but then you had Biden. There was such a push for politically correct people, DEI. I think all of these upper levels, like I think of UPS and the push, very qualified white men did not get promoted when I was in UPS over the last 10, 15 years for sure. I mean, there's just a big push for minorities and for women. And that doesn't mean that there aren't highly qualified minorities or women. But when the push is to make sure they're the only ones that you're promoting, you're going to be promoting people who should not be there. And that
Absolutely.
definitely happened at UPS. But in these organizations, that's where these people have been pushed up over the years. And we need to take a very close look at who these people are and to say, do we have the right people in place?
And the president is supposedly, and I don't think he should go. He's going to China next month.
No,
I
no, he
think that's
should never go
insane.
there.
Absolutely insane. Do not go.
Mm.
And the secrets, they can't even protect him in the Hilton in the United States of America. Never mind how many Secret Service are they going to bring? Are they going to bring in a special team of you bring in the Navy SEALs that are around him? Maybe, but still, he's how could he not be a target in China? And God forbid something happened there. I don't think he should go. I don't think he
And
should go for security, but I also don't think he should go to reward China. I don't think we should be elevating China. They're our enemy. They are not our
Mhm.
friend. President Trump always talks about his good relationship with GDP, blah, blah, blah. And it's like BS. He might be nice to you when he's right there, but the guy hates our country. He hates you. He would kill you in a heartbeat. They're a competitor. They steal all our economic developments. They're a bad actor. They don't deserve the president of the United States in China.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. There is absolutely no reason he should go there. And just think, I'm not only concerned about him being in a building in China, I don't know how many jets, if any, fly around him. I don't know how that's set up. But just like we have in the United States, many people who would just cheer if Donald Trump was assassinated, there are many leaders in the world who would
Absolutely.
cheer if Donald Trump was taken out. And just think about the Air Force One just flying or landing. What's so difficult about having a surface to air missiles there or rigging the runway? Or there's
Right.
just so many
We don't
things that
have a
can happen
military
before.
base in China. We don't
What's
have a
that?
military base. We
Yeah,
don't have a military base where if he went to Europe, we have places he can land safely because he's protected and we get to fly over airspace and we have a lot of control in Europe. We don't
yeah.
have any control in China, nothing.
Yeah. And so if China took him out, we'd have a lot of Democrats in the United States who would be happy. We'd have a lot of third world countries who'd probably be happy. So China might get some kudos for doing this
Absolutely.
until people are like, "Oh, well, if that ever happened, everybody would regret it eventually." But no, I would never let Donald Trump fly there. There's absolutely no reason for it. But Rich, I do want to point out there's some talk on the news, social media, where people are saying we need to tone down the rhetoric. Saw Raskin, that Democrat who used to
Yeah,
wear the
yeah.
bandana on his head.
Moron.
And they're like, oh, our rhetoric is fine. I've only criticized him about policy and garbage like that. And the fact of the matter is, so what they're trying to set up a false equivalency to say, like, well, Donald Trump talks bad about people. And yeah, we criticize Donald Trump, but it's on policy. No, Donald Trump will criticize people and he'll say things that I don't think are appropriate, but he's criticizing them. He is not encouraging conservatives or Republicans to take out Democrats. Whereas on the other hand, the Democrats are literally saying things to say, take him out. The world would be a better place without him. And so
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear. We are not the same. Donald Trump's inappropriate conversation is just, it's tacky, it's crass, it's
Yeah, it's
crude.
personal attacking.
That's right. It is not what the Democrats do. When I saw people after Charlie Kirk was killed, people celebrating. We are not the same, and it annoys me that the media is trying to set up this false equivalency between us and Democrats, Rich.
Yeah, that we're not the same, and anybody with half a brain can see that. And you know, again, it's a good narrative for the media because it keeps eyes on and it keeps people angry. But what I'm noticing, Ken, I- I'm I'm noticing on the social platform, especially Facebook, a lot of people, except if they're like really political, like we are, a lot of people aren't even commenting on this stuff anymore. I think a lot of people have stepped away. There's a big movement with young people to step away from their phones. I think that's a good thing. There's a lot of young people that are leaning towards going back to church and Christianity. There's a lot of good things going on, but the media is definitely, this is their divisiveness is the game they play. I'm not saying that these people on the left aren't dangerous. But what I am saying is I think there's less of them than we get the impression of. There's a lot more people that have more common sense. There's too many people that have fallen under the left wing of the Democratic Party. Too many young people believe communism and socialism is better than capitalism. That's very dangerous and it's not good for the future of this country. But there is also this other movement that we don't hear about because it's not as divisive. And so sometimes I have to put some hope there. And I guess we'll see in the midterms as we get closer to that if those people are going to step up to the plate and make their voice known, because that's the only way we're going to hold the house is by the people who are quietly in the background staying away from this stuff. They have to come up to the plate and they've got to make it known, especially Christians who, I think I saw some ridiculous number that only 40% of Christians vote. And I was like, what? And
Crazy.
it's, God will not take care of it. God is calling you to go forward and make your voice heard. God can't vote.
Yeah.
So you can vote for what you believe is the party that supports Christianity, your beliefs. But
Yeah.
staying home is not the answer, because staying home is what gets evil elected. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw you a little curveball, Rich, because I saw this yesterday, but I'm sure you'll have an opinion about this one. I saw where Zoran Mamdani and the Democrats are already complaining about a budget crisis. And this is even before Mamdani has started really giving away free stuff. And so it just, I think it's funny. He's like, oh, we have a crisis here. So not only are people not going to get the free stuff that he's been promising, the question is, are they going to get the stuff that their tax dollars were supposed to go to? But what are your thoughts on this news that the budget is not balanced?
No, it never is. They're always using some kind of gimmick. And uh, Griffith, who's a billionaire in New York, he is livid. He's about to start a $6 billion project that will bring thousands of jobs for he's in charge of the Citadel hedge fund, I believe it is. It's a financial group. And he has a multi-million-dollar penthouse, and he only spends part-time there. And now Zoran Mandami is saying he and Kathy Hochul is in support of this, that they're going to tax people that have homes worth more than $5 million, that they're going to tax them additionally so that they can pay for the services of New York. Now let's think of this logic, Ken. You have people that don't live here that are paying millions and millions of dollars of taxes, creating jobs that create taxes, but they use no services because they're not here. They only come here on occasion, so they're not driving on the roads all the time. They're not using SNAP. They're not using any of these welfare programs. They're not using Medicaid. They're not using any of that. And they're the problem. It's like, how do you make that work in your head? You want more people that are paying that kind of money and not using services, because the formula works great if people are giving a lot of money and not using it. And now they want to punish them. And he is now threatening to pull that $6 billion contract and thousands of jobs. And Hochul is running on this. She is now supporting it. And now here's what people like me who live in upstate New York get concerned about. A Senate leader in the assembly said that should apply throughout the state of New York, not just New York City. Now, how many homes are over second homes are over 5 million in New York? Probably not as many as are in New York, but you're going after, you're going to destroy some of the communities where people will sell those homes and no longer be a tax base in these communities that need those people, like Lake George. Lake George probably has some homes that are over $5 million, but they're there for 2 weeks a year, 3 weeks, if they're lucky, 8 weeks. And they support the year-round community, and they're not even there. Lake George would die if they weren't getting the income from the wealthy that come up there. And the last thing, Ken, they're insatiable, so it'll start at 5 million. It'll go down to 3 million, and then it'll be at 1 million. And in today's world, when you start, because they're going to need more money, the $1 million homes, we've got $1 million homes in our neighborhood that I would never pay $1 million for, but they're worth $1 million. And because of supply, demand, we're on the lake, all that other stuff. But I mark my words, it'll go from 5 million, but it'll be down at 1 million before you know it, because they won't be able to balance the budget because they're spendaholics and they want to give stuff away to people who sit on their ass and do nothing.
Yeah.
Or here illegally.
They want to spend money on people who they expect to vote for them for spending their money. Yeah, there's a sequence of events that goes from, it's like the road to totalitarianism or authoritarianism. Initially, you have freedom, or, relative freedom. Then you increase centralized control, increase taxes, increase regulation. Dissent starts growing. People complain. People start moving out. Then the politicians have to start restricting people. And so the movement of people or speech or association, they start passing things like that. And that's kind of what this is. They can't keep people from actually moving, but it's like, okay, if you want to move, that's fine, but we're going to tax you to death, so they're really trying to keep people there. And then in socialism, communism, you go to coercive enforcement, and then you have propaganda. It's just like,
yeah,
it's just the way it works. But now, Rich, I posted something on our Facebook site about Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. He talked about how in New York City, they used to have roughly these numbers, like 20,000 employees. It's now down to 11,000. In Texas, they used to have 10,000 employees. Now they have 20,000 employees. So they are really voting with their feet.
Yeah.
But they see a gift horse, or they see the goose that laid the golden egg, and they want to kill the goose and try to get the gold out right away. Do you remember when AOC back in 2018, Amazon wanted to build a big facility there, would have met thousands and thousands of jobs, and AOC, she's being a principled person. No, they don't pay their people enough, and they don't give enough benefits. And so I guess Amazon, as far as I know, never built that facility. And so all these working class people who could have all these jobs to be earning an income, earning a living, having some benefits. These elitist liberal socialists are like, no, that's not good enough. I'd much rather you be on welfare. It's like, what are you doing? That doesn't make any sense.
No, no, because they live with envy in their heart. It's very ugly. It's if somebody else has been successful, somebody else was hurt by that, which is totally inconsistent with how it works. When Griffith became a billionaire, thousands of people get to work and make a really good living, and they pay a lot of taxes. Same with Jamie Dimon. JP Morgan Chase, those 20,000 employees, the amount of taxes they pay in New York and Dallas and everywhere else, and all of the philanthropy that they do. Griffith is supposedly got some really big foundations that he gives back into New York City as well. The left doesn't like that because he controls where the money goes. And that's competition to them. When you have philanthropy, private philanthropy, that's the only competition that the government has when it comes to those types of programs, and they hate it because it's always done better in the private sector. Everything is done better in the private sector, and that money doesn't filter through them, and they can't take their cut of the pie, which is their industry, quote unquote, of taking money from taxpayers for administering programs that half the time don't work and most of the time are just a money laundering operation to go back into their coffers and to keep people dependent and voting for Democrats. It's a sad, sad state, and it's comes down to our education system has failed. Public education, even the best public education, does a really bad job of teaching the founding of this country, why it's exceptional, its history against other types of nations and other types of economies like socialism, communism, and we don't do the job of making Americans, young kids, understand that they are blessed to be in this nation and the opportunity is there for them to take. There are no boundaries. Your race, gender, creed do not matter in this country if you're willing to work and you want to build something, create something that support your family, and maybe, just maybe, you become millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire, whatever it is. But everybody benefits when people are creative and build things that other people want. And they have not been taught this. Our education system is horrible at that. They do a little of it, but my contention is every year civics should be mandatory because there's enough American history to take you from first grade to senior in high school. There's plenty of great stuff. And you can put in some of the warts, but you also need to show how we learn from things in this society and we fix them. And that's how we operate. They don't get fixed in other places in the world like they get fixed here. So I'll get off the soapbox now, Ken, but it's sad what we're seeing with not all, some of the young generation. And as hands-on politics fathers, all you can do is share with your kids and hope that they get the message and understand how lucky they are.
I agree. We've said it before. I think the younger generation, they look at people like you and me and many other people in our generation, and they think that a house was just plopped on our lap, a good paying job just plopped on our lap, and they didn't see, how much time we spent getting an education, how many hours we worked, how hard we worked, what we sacrificed in order to save money to be put in a position like this, like we are right now. Somehow we need to do a better job. Another thing I want to talk about, Rich, I want to get your opinion on this. There is the what's called the organization called the Southern Poverty Law Center. And I've had many, many discussions with liberals online who would always go back to a report or an article from the Southern Poverty Law Center to say the United States is such a racist country. We have so many racist white people. And I'm like, listen, I'm a very conservative person. I have never been solicited to become or to join any organization that hates anybody, that's anti-black, anti-immigrant, I don't know who these people are. And then a report comes out, the new AG, Todd Blanche, just as a side note, I think maybe we're seeing a number of issues that needed to be addressed a year ago by Pam Bondi that are now being shown in the news. And I think like this is a very good example of it. Southern Poverty Law Center says, oh, there's all these racists out there. And what we find out is that the SPLC they would raise money by saying, look at all this racism out there. But meanwhile, behind the scenes, they were funding some of the activity of some of these racist groups. So I equate it to you have an exterminator come to your house with a bag of roaches. They throw it into your house, and then they say, oh, well, you need an exterminator to put this out, so pay me and I'll get rid of the roaches. And I think that's what the SPLC was doing. They're creating racism so that they could raise money to get rid of racism.
Yeah, I heard about it. I love your analogy, Ken. That makes it very simple. So basically, an exterminator throwing the roaches in and saying to the homeowner, hey, you got roaches and you can pay me to get rid of them. That is exactly what the Southern Poverty Law Center did. And you have to just think about this in practical terms. Here's a group that has to pay to find and promote what white supremacy, because there's not enough of it around for them to go after, so they have to create it. So it's like that. If you think about the bigger picture, it means there's not a lot of white racism going on out there. And not enough for them to raise money, so they have to create it. So you got to say, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing for us. And we've known this, Ken, because to your point, nobody has ever I don't even know who these people are. And what Southern Poverty Law Center considers, racist material. Charlie Kirk was on their list of people that you should not support because he's a racist. There are so many people on that list. If we instead of having over 6,000 viewers, we had 6 million, we would be on the list too, Ken. Because what they do is they put these people on the list so that corporations don't want to associate with them, and they can't raise money to a lot of people go out there and raise money to support their causes, even like the Federalist Papers or the Heritage Foundation, all these different organizations, they label them hate groups. And it's like, we're not haters. Wait, what are you talking about? I think Laura Ingraham was on the list or something. It was like, you guys, I'm sure Hannity's on the list. I'm sure anybody that has a conservative opinion, and that undermines what they're doing. And it just shows how disingenuous they are. And I'm so glad they're going after them. I hope they take them down, and they can't raise money because they're a cancer in the world of politics, because they're dividing people with lies and misinformation.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I think it was during the Obama administration, and there was supposed to be this big, huge rally of white supremacists in Washington, D.C., and CNN was filming it. And I watched it because I'm like, who are these white supremacists? I don't know.
Let's see this. Yeah.
And about 10 or so people were walking down the streets of Washington, D.C. with like hundreds of reporters, and then there were people lining the street, throwing things at them. And I'm thinking once they get to this park that they're going to go and have this rally, there's going to be thousands of people there. No, there was nobody there, literally nobody there. So these people stood up on, a platform and started speaking, and basically what they said was just, milk toast conservatism. So maybe
Yeah.
they talk about racism in other venues. I don't know, never heard of these people. But the bottom line was nobody was supporting them, and the media made a huge deal of it. I'm like,
Absolutely.
this is ridiculous. But the other thing I wanted to bring up, Rich, and this goes to Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general. Another thing that he did, other than bringing this SPLC fraud to light, he talked about James Comey, and he's in. I guess he brought it to a grand jury, and the grand jury indicted James Comey for what he did when a few years ago he said, "Oh, I was just walking on the beach and there were these shells that were arranged in the shape of 8647. Clearly, what that means to anybody who has a brain is kill Donald Trump." And he said, "Oh, I didn't know. I just thought it was an interesting way to put together shells." But he knew exactly what he was doing, and he played it off. But now we have the DOJ is like, we're going to bring it to a grand jury, and the grand jury heard it, and they're like, "Okay, sorry, we're going to indict you for this." You might say, and kind of like my gut instinct is that maybe isn't
Yeah,
that big of
this
a
isn't.
deal. But
I'm
when
with
you
you,
add
Ken.
it, but when you add it together with all the other things that go on,
Yeah.
he was just fanning the flames of these extremists
Yeah.
who already want to kill Donald Trump. So I'm all for them going after James Comey for this.
Yeah, I think James Comey is a scummy guy. I think he did some things. I wish they had something else to hang their hat on here, because I'm not sure this is the right um vehicle for it. I think what he did with the Hillary Clinton emails, knowing, and then he didn't bring any prosecution there. I was hoping it was going to be like emails that said, "Hey, she broke the law, but we're not going to prosecute because of XYZ." That to me would be something I'd hang my hat on. The shells being the main thing here, 8647. I'm not sure. This is going to be tactically, this is going to be difficult because it's going to be easy to make fun of. It's a free speech issue. And I hope that they tie this to other things. So if I was on the grand jury and this is all they brought to me was 8647, and he wasn't a shooter or an assassin, I'd be like, you know what? There's like a free speech thing going on here. He didn't get on there and say, incite and we need to kill Donald Trump. He didn't go, like, he wasn't using it as a supporting mechanism. It was like a, oh, ha ha. He was doing it to, I think, to get his base get the Democratic base all riled up. I don't think he should have done it. I think it's inappropriate, but I hope, to your point, they're going to tie it to something else, and whether it's the assassination culture and how they didn't protect Trump during the campaign, something like that. Maybe there's something deeper, but if it's just the picture, I don't know if that's a hill to die on. I think he's so scummy. He's got so many other things, but Comey's gonna take this on another book tour and another. He's gonna go out to his left wing base, and they're gonna love it. And he's a narcissist, and he's gonna eat it alive. So I'm not sure about it, but I do like that Todd is going. He's indicting the one that's more important is Fauci's assistant, and getting Fauci. They've indicted one of Fauci's assistants. That I totally agree with. Fauci needs to go to jail. So he is moving forward on things,
Mhm.
I'm just not a huge fan of maybe that's all the media is focusing on. I haven't read the indictment.
And I don't disagree with you. The Fauci thing, I need to do a little bit more research on that. But I think Todd Blanche should be bringing, there's enough information, there's enough corruption that took place during the Biden administration that he should be able to bring these things forward every single week, which is something that Pam
Absolutely.
Bondi didn't
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Pam Bondi was sitting on her thumbs.
Yeah, but here's the way I look at it, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that he's gonna be put in prison or anything. You had I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of attorneys were on the January 6th
Absolutely.
investigation,
Yeah.
but I'm more than happy to take a bunch of them off of that or whatever they were doing, put them on this because to me, I kind of look at it like it's soliciting murder, ordering a hit. It's called criminal solicitation. You can be charged just for asking someone to kill another person. It does not require the murder to occur. Granted, he explicit? No, but was that a dog whistle to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
extremists in the Democratic Party? I think it was. Just another person saying, "Hey, it's okay if you kill Donald Trump."
Yeah, and he was, the head of the FBI.
Yeah,
So he's a critical player in law enforcement and somebody that's supposedly an insider. I get it. I get it.
yeah, yeah,
I just the shells, if he was writing and saying like standing there 86-47, he was smart enough to be coy about the whole, oh, look what I found. Yeah. And meanwhile on his feed, he found something about vote Kamala or something written in the shells another time that he was on the beach. So we know he's
yeah,
full of crap. And
yeah.
he did a lot of bad things that he should be held accountable for. I'm just saying this one, I wish it was something else. I'm glad they're going after him. I think Comey is really a despicable character. So if they get him on something, I'm good with that. Make the
Yeah.
guy spend a bunch of money. He's made people spend money. He's bankrupted people by going after people. So let's bankrupt him. I have no issue with that.
Yeah. What else? What do you know about the Fauci's assistant? What did he do? Wasn't it something to do with emails
Yeah,
where?
there was correspondence about some of the COVID restrictions and the data on COVID, all that stuff. I didn't read. I just heard it.
Yeah.
And to me, there's a lot of things there. And we all know Fauci was making it up as he went. We weren't hearing statistics we should have. The CDC was complicit. And we were given vaccines, recommending vaccines to children
Uh-huh.
and young men and young teenagers and people who had no reason to get a vaccine for COVID, which was simply, it got the vulnerable population, but they used it as a control mechanism, and they all should be held accountable. And I think we'll hear more about it as it didn't make the news because it wasn't Fauci, but
Yeah.
it's going to tie to Fauci. So, and we all know Fauci got money and got money from the drug companies. He was paid to. He was the highest paid employee in the government at one point,
Hmm.
but he also, fundraising off of the drug companies and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff around Fauci, and starting with the assistant, I would rather they just go right after Fauci. Yeah, like you said, he hasn't been there long. He's only the acting attorney general, and he's starting to put out indictments. And I hope he puts one out a week, one out a day,
Yeah.
one out an hour if he's got them.
Yeah, I think the whole COVID era was the darkest time in
Absolutely.
the history of the United States. I would argue certainly the darkest time in my lifetime where I mean when the government is telling you you can't leave your house, you
Right.
can't go outside, you can't have family get-togethers, you can't have weddings, when they can
Mhm.
control you like that, when they can fire you for not getting the COVID vaccine if you're a healthy young man, that's a very dark time. I always like to tell the story that Cameron and we did not get the COVID vaccine. Sherry and Caitlin get the COVID vaccine. Cameron and I got COVID, and it wasn't good. We didn't like it. We were, in our house for like 10 days, but it was just like a very bad flu.
Yep.
After they got the vaccine, and after we were all around people who had COVID, guess who didn't get COVID? Me and Cameron, who didn't get the vaccine. Guess who did get COVID? My wife and his girlfriend at the time, who did get the vaccines. It was just,
it was
just
false
an awful time in our life.
around.
Yeah. So Rich, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go next? We have a few other things to talk about.
Yeah, let's do some quick, because time is of the essence here. What's happening with the blockade? I think Iran, it's bad when Iran's trying to make a deal because their economy is spiraling downward because of the blockade. And it sounds like the president's going to do the right thing. The deals that, quote unquote, the whoever's in charge there, I don't think anybody's in charge, but the people who are making the outward gestures to the United States are saying, hey, just stop the blockade and
please,
we'll open the Straits of Hormuz. But we're not doing anything with they're flailing, and the president's just like, we're not talking to anybody until we can get a true handle on who's in charge, and getting a real deal, getting our hands on the nuclear materials. I think the president's doing I think they should have just blockaded right from the beginning, right after they finished their bombing expeditions. But this is working. I think it's a good thing. I think the Iranian people are going to rise up. I saw some numbers today. Inflation is like 67%. People can't afford, chicken. They can't afford any, it's really difficult there. And you just, keep the thumb on the throat and let them rise up. And then somebody comes out of that's much more moderate, then we'll deal with them. But I think we should just hold tight with what we're doing right now. We don't have to make any gestures anywhere. We just need to hold tight.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I do want to just address the people on social media who claim, and I have discussions with people about this all the time. They say Trump is just going to get back to the same place that Obama was with the Obama-Iran nuclear deal. And there's nothing that can be further from the truth.
Absolutely.
Obama lifted their sanctions. He gave them $150 billion. Yes, it was their own money that we had frozen, but we had frozen it because they're a terrorist regime. We gave them $1.7 billion in cash. We allowed them, and this is the key, because people talk about, they weren't allowed to make a nuclear weapon. Listen, we allowed them to keep their ability to create a nuclear weapon. They kept it all at lower levels, but they kept it all. They could keep some of their uranium. They could keep their enrichment technology. They could keep their centrifuges. Inspections were not allowed at any time, at any place. They could say, no, you can't do that. You got to give us like 30 days. And it was only for 10 years. So if Trump didn't do something, they would have nuclear weapons right now. But it really is the key. It's like, yes, the Obama deal did say you can't keep as much of what you have, but it would have been very easy to reconstitute their program at any given time. And we're assuming that they were really lowering their levels. We don't know that to be true because we could never verify it. So I just want to make that clear to the people who think Obama had this great deal that would have kept them from developing nuclear weapons. Total BS. That is absolutely not the case.
Yeah, they already had 60% enrichment, and they only needed to get to 90%. 60% is enough for a dirty bomb. So they were lying the whole time. So,
Hmm.
that deal was not even worth the paper it was written on. It's like having a deal with the Chinese. They lie, they cheat. The dictatorships, they're going to lie, and especially Islamists, they are allowed to lie if it moves their ball forward for their goal of annihilating the great Satan and all that.
Hmm.
So and anytime, all you have to do is look up any conversations with somebody who was formerly a Muslim, understands how the mullahs work, and they will tell you this is part of the game they play. And the Chinese play the same game. Come over here, we'll give you cheap labor, American companies, and then they figure out how to make the thing that you're making, that you're sending back to the United States, and then they undermine you and they steal your patents, they steal your marketplace, and you end up out of business, and they're sending us cheap crap back to the United States and that's how they grew their economy. They grew their economy on capitalists who were stupid enough to think that cheaper labor was worth the cost of going to China. And it wasn't. And most of them found that out because they lost all of their patents, all of their confidential information, and China just duplicated and undermined them because they're a communist regime that doesn't care about their people, doesn't care about wages, doesn't care about quality of life. So, it's just despicable.
Yeah, nothing I can add to that, Rich. You want time to wrap it up?
Yeah, we can. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening to Hands on Politics, episode number 94, where a couple of brothers from the Bronx get together on a weekly basis to discuss the issues of the day. Come join us. We appreciate all of you on Facebook on Hands on Politics. I think there's 6,500 plus, getting up to 7,000 probably by the time you see this. We appreciate that. There are other. YouTube is the big one for us at Hands on Politics with Rich Ken 146. Just become a subscriber for us, and this way you can get right onto our podcast. But we love that you watch it through Facebook as well. And we appreciate all of you out there. And Ken, it was so good to see you this past weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. It was a pleasure as always.
I enjoyed it, Rich. Yeah, looking forward to next week.
All righty. We'll talk to everyone next week. Thanks for watching.